Ladies and gentlemen, and just like that, chickens voted for KFC. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about the West at the moment. I feel like the West is the chickens that voted for KFC. Because it would appear that everything the West seems to support just is like stupid, possibly retarded. Anyway, before I get on to the main video of today, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Anyway, if you watched my videos last week, you would have known that we made a statement in the United Kingdom about the UK being colonized. Well, Sadiq Khan actually had a response to that, and it was as follows. Have a watch.
I think when you use words like colonize, that is offensive. I think his apology is not an apology.
What do you think about Jim Ratcliffe's comments? Is he one of those people perpetrating hatred?
I think it's really important to have conversations about whatever concerns people have. I made a speech 2 weeks ago about immigration. I think it's possible to talk about immigration without denigrating migrants or their children. I think when you use words like colonize, that is offensive. I think his apology is not an apology.
Now, you may look at that and say, well, Sadiq, maybe you're right. Well, in other news, a Christian preacher in London has had the bejeebers kicked out of him for, well, preaching in London, because according to the Islamics, the Muslims in that area, it's a Muslim area, and how dare he do that? Have a watch.
Come in love for you, my friends. We forgive you. Forgive you, my friends. We love you. Love your souls.
Why you touch Muhammad?
Love you, my friends.
Why you touch Muhammad?
Love you.
Look, a lot of people say something
My
about
friends,
this.
we've come to...
Say something about this.
You're making a scene.
Why you touch Muhammad?
I am
Why you say Muhammad?
Muhammad.
Don't say Muhammad. Don't say Muhammad. You touch us. You touch us.
In another news, some other Muslims are going around the country basically saying that Christmas should be banned because it's offensive, it's Islamophobic to the Muslim individuals. This individual, you may look at and just say, well, it's a random person. No, it's not. It's a Muslim preacher. And this is what he's teaching to his congregants who live in Britain. Have a watch.
The worshippers of the cross, they say that Isa is the son of Allah. Jesus is the son of Allah. And then after that, what do they say? That they are repeating the sayings of the disbelievers before them. Allah said, Qatalahumullahu. Allah said, may Allah fight them. May Allah kill them. That's what Allah said. How are they deluded? How are they deluded? That's what Allah said. And I know this is going to make some people cringe. Some people that claim to be Muslim, is going to make them cringe. Huh? What are you going to say about community cohesion now? After you hear that verse, how can you tell me about community cohesion and interfaith and prevent? How are you going to talk to me about that after you hear that verse? And Allah said, Allah going to kill them.
But what I can say to you is at least it's not just England. It's also confined to, say, the Netherlands. Because in other news, pro-Syrian individuals who are very keen on the Islamic regime in Syria celebrated, the pro-Islamic regime in Syria in Netherlands. Yeah, have a watch. But don't worry, it's not just the Netherlands, it's happening elsewhere in Europe, like, I don't know, France. Have a watch.
Defeating the US, defeating Israel means defeating Canada. This settlement will exist on the basis of the indigenous people and the black people. Defeating Israel means defeating this colonial institution.
Well, dear viewer, what you may be looking at all these clips and asking yourself, well, what exactly does this have to do with you? And that is, well, as you can clearly see, Europe and many parts of Europe are in fact being colonized. And that in itself has ramifications on the rest of the world, because many of the seats of power, for example, the European Union, sit in, well, checks notes, Europe. I mean, that's normally the way it is. So you have to ask yourself the question, when individuals come from European states and start to have an agenda that isn't traditionally European, you have to ask yourself the question of, well, why? One key example of that would be the special reporter on the Palestinian cause, Francesca Albanese, South Africa's Person of the Year. Now, for those of you who watched my videos last week, you would have noticed that she said that humanity has a shared villain, a person that they really need to destroy, and it was Israel. And this led many individuals to ask the question of whether or not she was actually impartial. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't really have to ask, because there are so many examples of this individual and the type of things that she said that it's really not hard to notice. Now, let me give you some examples. Let's use the October 7th attacks, which she described as unfortunate and regrettable, but it was fine because they were actually occupiers, so yeah, just get the occupiers. Have a watch.
The narrative that has been spread, including by European leaders, is that the 7th of October, the crimes that were committed on October 7 were because of anti-Semitism. This is so false. I do not exclude that there could be anti-Semitic sentiments among some Palestinians. Who am I to say that? But the motives were not anti-Semitic, because the attack was against Israel, and Israeli civilians, unfortunately, regrettably, but because they are occupiers. 75% of the Palestinians who live in Gaza are not from Gaza, are from the lands of the kibbutzim that have been created first and foremost as military outposts, and then they have become places, civilian places. But you see, this is why I keep on saying unhealed wounds continue to fester. And also, sorry to say, but Israelis have been lived with the ghetto that Gaza has become for decades. And many Israelis, many of those living in the kibbutzim, were really peace activists and active against apartheid and the occupation. This is the tragedy within the tragedy. But average Israelis don't even care about what the soldiers do in the occupied Palestinian territory. So there is this mental, cognitive dissonance that they really believe that there is a dark area that doesn't belong to their conscience. It does, and this is the reminder of it.
Now, in a different video, she was asked questions around the suggestions that Hamas had raped certain individuals on October 7th, and she initially said that it was fabricated, but then said, so let's assume that these did occur. So what? Who cares? This from the same individuals who push #BelieveAllWomen. Have a watch.
Look, there are different views on what happened on October 7, but the thing is, the violence of that day, which was brutal for the Israelis, but that brutality was also, there were fabrications attached to it, like the mass rape and other horror stories.
In the West, the mainstream media has replicated and amplified the lies we have heard. And I said, sometimes I look at politicians and journalists who have repeated lies. But what's the need to talk about mass rapes? There is no evidence of rape.
On October the 11th last year, you said on X, Hamas's crimes, including rape, have not been confirmed. And you said that divulging information about the perpetration of rape by Hamas risks to escalate tensions and endanger lives in a volatile context. Now, a report from the UN in March of this year said there are reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence, including rape and gang rape, occurred across multiple locations of Israel and the Gaza periphery during the attacks on 7th of October. Do you now accept that they happened?
I prefer to rely on the report on the two reports issued this year by the Commission of Inquiry, because unlike the Patel's report, the special representative of the Secretary General went to Israel, didn't interview any victims, made very controversial statements. I respect her, but at the same time, I respect the findings of a fact-finding body whose job is to collect evidence. If rape occurred, it should have been investigated, prosecuted, and the responsible people
but the
should be held
UN
to
says
justice.
it did happen.
No, the point is, no,
you
the
work
UN
at the UN.
said, no, the UN, the UN there are political appointees and then human rights appointees. And the Commission of Inquiry concluded that in June, that there was no evidence to support the claims of gang rape. But let's assume, I don't want to say anything that I've not investigated, so let's assume that rape occurred. So does it justify what Israel has done?
So I just want to ask you about this Dina Project report. They're now saying there's evidence sexual violence was widespread and systematic on October 7, especially around the Nova Music Festival. I just want to get your reaction to that.
Look, I cannot comment on this report, which is the first time I hear of. However, there has been an investigation of the Commission of Inquiry on Israel-Palestine about what happened on October 7. And it's been very difficult for the Commission of Inquiry to access the victims. I've read other reports written by including Israeli sources, Physicians for Human Rights, who have backtracked from what they said in the beginning. So, of course, I cannot pronounce myself on violence that I don't know of. If it has occurred, of course it deserves justice. There is no question about that.
You may look at all of that and say, well, why exactly is this individual just constantly going, so what, to Hamas? Well, it would appear that they're very keen on Hamas. In fact, they seem to almost be apologetic to Hamas. Have a watch.
Però Hamas, io non credo che la gente abbia idea e contezza di che cosa sia Hamas, perché Hamas è una forza politica che ha vinto le elezioni nel 2005, che ci piaccia o no. Quelle sono state definite le elezioni più democratiche Hamas ha messo insieme un sistema di scuole, strutture pubbliche, ospedali. Era semplicemente l'autorità, come si chiamava in gergo tecnico, l'autorità di fatto. Quindi è fondamentale che si capisca che quando si pensa ad Hamas non si deve pensare necessariamente a tagliagole, gente armata fino ai denti o a combattenti. Non è così.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you, South Africa's Person of the Year, Francesca Albanese. I mean, we praised her reports, and they were all just so brilliant, except when you look at it on the face of it, she wasn't impartial at all. In fact, she actually looks like she has an axe to grind. And based on the type of things that she herself says, I would describe her as being deeply unpleasant. But, you see, ladies and gentlemen, all of this is betraying a larger problem. And that is, with demographic changes across the West, cultural changes are accompanying them. And those cultural changes, well, let's just say you may not enjoy them. Now, you may look at all of this and ask yourself the question, well, what do I do? Well, the Prime Minister of Israel actually has a comment, and that is as follows. Have a watch.
I say to you in front of these vilifications, do not cower. Do not bend. Do not bow your head. Fight back. Because people respect those who respect themselves. And the minorities that fought back, whether it's the blacks or the gays or women, they fought back. And what we have to do as Jews, both here in Israel and in the various Jewish communities around the world, beginning with the United States, is to fight back. Silence will not help. Looking askance will not help. Fight back. That's what I tell you. That's what I tell young Jewish students that I meet. I'm very proud of them when I meet them.
But you see, he's not wrong. You see, his suggestion is that what we should be doing in the West is actually promoting what we stand for and being very proud of it. But I have noticed something in South Africa that gets deeply worrying, and that is every time we promote anything that we want to be proud of, you're either captured, you're a Zionist shill, you're a dirty goy, you're a colonizer, you're a white supremacist. And all of these labels are thrown at you in order to make you bow your head, in order to be ashamed of what it is that you are pushing. And I, for one, find that to be incredibly distasteful. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And until next time, bye.